Welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us this evening at the Port Melbourne Town Hall. It's always good to be back in Port Melbourne. The City of Port Phillip respectfully acknowledges the traditional owners of the lands we're meeting on today. We pay our respects to their elders, both past and present. We acknowledge and uphold their continuing relationship to this land. This meeting is conducted in a hybrid style, and tonight we welcome Councillor Sirikoff and Councillor Clark, who are joining us online. And we also stream this meeting through our council webcast and through our Facebook page. The recordings of these sessions will be displayed on the council website a short time after the meeting this evening. And please note that the recordings of this meeting are copyrighted and cannot be altered, reproduced or republished without the written permission of council. If we experience any technical difficulties tonight, we'll do our best to rectify them. We may have to take a short break whilst we rectify those issues, but we're reasonably good at it now, so hopefully we don't have any issues here this evening. I remind all attendees here in person and also joining us this evening online that any member of public addressing council should and must extend due courtesy and respects to council under the processes which we operate here today. Please take direction from me as chair whenever you're called to do so. If speakers could always remain respectful, and statements or questions, please avoid being or including any defamatory or offensive or objectionable comments, particularly those that are aimed at embarrassing a council officer or a councillor. Please also ensure that any comments or questions made at the meeting here this evening relate to items of business which are inside the powers of council. Welcome to everybody here this evening. We have a full deck of councillors, which is great. Welcoming councillors from Lake Ward. Welcome to Councillor Bond, Councillor Copsey, and again Councillor Sirikoff joining us online this evening. And Gateway Ward councillors, Councillor Consolo, welcome, and Councillor Martin, welcome. And also our Canal Ward councillors, Deputy Mayor Baxter, Councillor Crawford, and also Councillor Clark that's joining us here this evening. And welcome to our presiding officer this evening, Mr Peter Smith, our CEO. Councillors, let's move to the first agenda item this evening, which is apologies. We're all here, there are none, so let's now move to item number 2, which is the minutes of the previous meeting. Councillors, the minutes of the meeting of council of the 6th of April and the special meeting on the 27th of April have been circulated to you. Do you have any questions in relation to the minutes? There being none, I'm looking for a mover to accept those minutes. I'll take Councillor Bond as the mover and Councillor Martin as the seconder. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Let's now move to item number 3, which is declarations of conflicts of interest. Councillors, are there any conflicts you wish to declare at this point in the meeting? There being none, let's now move to a special section of our agenda this evening, which is the presentation of an award. So we've added this to this evening's agenda at short notice, but it's an important part of recognising the achievements of council. So Star Health has made an award to council in recognition of our efforts in terms of our efforts to work with them on the vaccination of residents of the City of Port Phillip during the COVID-19 pandemic. I asked Tony Keenan, the General Manager of Community Wellbeing and Inclusion, to say a few words. Tony, please go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. The City of Port Phillip is very fortunate to have, as well as great buildings and technology, we have a fantastic community infrastructure that many councils have invested in over the time. And that served us incredibly well during the pandemic. And we've had lots of examples of where we were able to quickly get food to people. Through Port Phillip Zero, we were able to get rough sleepers housed, but this one's particularly a proud achievement. Throughout the height of the pandemic, Council worked with Star Health and the local public health network to support our residents to get access to local testing and vaccination sites, with a particular focus on vulnerable residents. For example, Council supported Star Health to set up temporary vaccination sites at council-owned facilities, including the Port Melbourne Town Hall and the Betty Day Community Centre. In partnership with Council and other community groups, Star Health also led a program of mobile testing and vaccination at public housing, community housing and rooming house sites to support the most vulnerable in the community. And I think it was no accident that the City of Port Phillip avoided some of the things that happened at some of the other larger public housing sites. I think it was through the great effort of Star Health, the community and the city.
No worries. Thank you, Tony. We accept that, but just on behalf of all councillors, please pass our congratulations to your team. Thank you for all the work that you have personally done and your team have done during what was a very important time. We greatly appreciate it. So, councillors, feel free to say anything if you would, but I'm very happy to accept that, and I'll shake the CEO's hand and take that.
There you go, Mayor.
Well done.
Can we get a photo?
Better get a photo first.
Okay. Keep everyone. Should we get it later or we'll do it now?
Tony's doing it very quickly.
All right, let's do it now. All right.
Thank you, Mayor.
Pleasure. All right. Thank you for allowing us to do that, and it's important to recognise the achievement of our staff. So thank you very, very much. Let's now move to item number 4, which is public question time and submissions. We will now hear from all public questions and public comments on report items this evening. Statements to be read by an officer in some cases on behalf of members of the public will be summarised. So let's start off with, I now call upon Bill Phelan. Welcome. And you're submitting a question to council, and if I could just get you to state your name and your suburb, Bill, and your 3 minutes starts when you do. Just try it one more time. You should see a red light in front of you.
Red light's on.
Yep, loud and clear. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Mr Mayor and councillors. Several weeks ago we received this flyer from the City of Port Phillip. Now this flyer stated, "We
I'll just Bill, just if you give me a minute, I'll just ask an officer to pop over and just move that mic a bit closer. And
I can move it closer.
Turn the level up just a little.
How's that?
Much better. Thank you.
Much better. Right.
I'll reset your 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Right. Several weeks ago we received this flyer from the City of Port Phillip stating, "We are building a BMX pump track in Garden City Reserve." This was without any public consultation. We are building it. For those of you who are not familiar with the historically significant Garden City Reserve, it features well-maintained grass and gardens and is tastefully treed. It's a very popular dog off-lead park and the long-term home of what is probably the best volunteer dog training club in Melbourne, which operates every Sunday. Additionally, of course, it is much-loved passive recreation area. For the public to be told we are building a BMX pump track in Garden City Reserve could well be described as an attitude of sheer arrogance from council staff. The flyer then refers to council's Have Your Say website, which invites a question followed by room for comments. On the 7th of April, I lodged on this site a question: why put asphalt in precious green parkland? Together with comments on why this location is unsuitable for such an activity. Christopher Cook, the council's coordinator for this project, provided a totally unsatisfactory generic response. Thank you for the comments. They will be considered. This is in spite of him giving detailed responses to other questions. This demonstrates that he cannot or would not engage.
Bill, do you have a question? You're going through.
Yes, I'm asking a question. Yes,
I'll just caution you.
Most assuredly,
I ask you to be respectful of officers, etc.
Yeah, well, these are facts. These are facts,
being,
Mr. Mayor.
But let's get to the question, if we could, Bill.
I need a couple more paragraphs before the question. He demonstrated that he couldn't engage in a reasoned manner. He has recently backtracked on the "we are building" advice to council has not made a decision and we are pausing the consultation. This is in spite of the original plan to have a briefing paper before you tonight and a motion to proceed and have the project completed by mid-August. Mr Mayor and Councillors, the question I put to you tonight is the same question I lodged on Have Your Say. Why put asphalt in precious green parkland? As reasonably short-term custodians of council property and as a council with policies of greening a municipality, surely you have a responsibility to preserve irreplaceable parkland for future generations. As there is little or no public objection to the concept of a BMX pump track, may I respectfully suggest you immediately move to abandon the current proposal to use Garden City Reserve and instruct Christopher Cook and his team to identify a suitable location for a BMX pump track that will not alienate precious green parkland. There are several alternatives.
Thanks, Bill. Tony Keenan, would you answer that question for us, please?
Through you, Mayor, why is there a proposal to build a BMX pump track in Garden City Reserve? It's a result of a very large community petition. The council have asked us to explore possible sites. As you indicated, Have Your Say is our consultation page, so we're receiving feedback. Councillors will receive a report and they'll bring a report back to council at some stage.
Yep, CEO, if you could.
Through you, Mayor, Mr Cook is one of my officers who is doing the work directed by council. If Ms Nolan has a problem, or Ms Nolan, if you have a problem with the performance of any of my officers, please direct those concerns to me and I'll follow them up.
Thank you. I call upon Tom Ashton submitting a question to council. Hey Tom, welcome. If you could just state your name, your suburb in 3 minutes.
Tom Ashton, Elwood. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And none of you, as I look up in front of me, looks old enough to have witnessed the first years, dare I say the halcyon years, of the Clean Up Australia campaign. That campaign initially enjoyed brilliant publicity via television, radio and newspapers. There was no such thing as social media back then. Now, that publicity motivated people everywhere to take part. Television cameras visited clean-up sites and a real sense of the community working together was evident. Sadly, that momentum fizzled out. The Victorian community requires leadership around the dropping of rubbish and its removal from our streets, beaches, car parks and parks. We have little groups going out once a month and I must admit they do a great job, but really is scratching the surface. Would our councillors consider the suggestion that our city take the lead by facilitating Clean Up the City of Port Phillip Days? Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Good question, and thanks for coming, Tom. I appreciate that. Tony Keenan, over to you. Lachlan Johnson, if you could do the honours for us this evening.
Through you, Mayor, thank you, Tom Ashton, for your question. At the moment, Council is consulting on its draft budget, which includes the draft Don't Waste It strategy, which is Council's integrated approach to managing waste and litter across the city. The City of Port Phillip, like many inner city councils and like many councils across Victoria, really does struggle with issues around public litter and waste. Tom will take your question tonight as a submission on the draft strategy and provide a response at the end of June when that's considered by Council for adoption.
Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
No, thank you for coming. I call upon Louisa Hurd submitting a question to Council, and Louisa joins us online. Can you hear us? It's got Louisa here.
Through you, Mayor, we don't have Louisa online at this point, if you'd like to continue through.
No problem. Hopefully we can come back. Simon Rashley, can you hear us?
Yes, Mayor, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear. Just get you to state your name, Simon, and your suburb, and please go ahead with your question to Council.
Thank you, Mayor. Simon Rashley from St Kilda. I'm here on behalf of the Eildon Road Childcare and Kindergarten. We'd like to thank the Council for the ongoing dialogue around the future of our early learning centres. One of the viable alternatives to sale currently being assessed is to fully renovate 17 Eildon Road to address non-compliance with building codes and to improve accessibility. Both Council and Eildon Road acknowledge that such a refurbishment would require a significant investment, perhaps in the vicinity of $2 million. In their original report to Council, officers seem to suggest that this would not be a good value for money investment because even after a full refurbishment, certain functional issues would remain. The preference, therefore, would be to channel investments into new, built-for-purpose childcare centres. This consultation process has shown, however, that many local families and residents prefer smaller centres and, in fact, consider an older residential building, such as 17 Eildon Road, to be an ideal environment for an early learning centre. While we acknowledge that 17 Eildon Road would never look exactly like a modern, built-for-purpose early learning centre, and indeed from our perspective we wouldn't want it to, what we're struggling to understand is exactly what would be those functional deficiencies that would remain post-refurbishment. Could Council detail the functional deficiencies that could never be overcome at 17 Eildon Road without a complete rebuild? What exactly does a modern built-for-purpose facility have that a fully refurbished 17 Eildon Road never could?
Thank you. Tony Keenan.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Mr. Rashley attended the consultation the other night with this Committee of Management where this question was addressed in detail, but for the benefit of the community, I can go through a broad outline of some of the things that couldn't be achieved. An all abilities play area could not be achieved because of space. That would be impossible at that centre. It would be very difficult to fit in meeting rooms, etc., for interview rooms that would be in a modern built-for-purpose facility. It would be very difficult to get an outcome where you had passive surveillance of children at all time. There's some of the things that wouldn't be able to achieve in a renovated heritage building.
Thank you, Tony Keenan. I now call upon Helen Halliday submitting a question to the Council. Good evening, Helen. Can you hear us?
I can.
We can hear you loud and clear. Just get you to state your name and your suburb, and please go ahead.
My name is Helen Halliday. I live in Balaclava, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. At a council meeting on the 2nd of March, I asked about the progress to deliver programmed tree planting under the council's greening Port Phillip. I subsequently got a response from an officer which informed me that you are unable to do so and that when it could or would be provided, it would be done so on the council website. You are also unable to provide me with specific information about the identification of hotspots. My intention was not, however, to seek a comprehensive response, but rather to find out how far the council was progressing to meet its greening Port Phillip outcomes. So my response tonight is in relation to the letter that I received, and I would like to know, first of all, has the council spent the $740,000 it allocated for tree planting in last year's budget or this year's budget? And could the council now provide information by neighbourhood of where this money is being spent? Secondly, given the acknowledged imbalance in spending across the neighbourhoods identified in last year's budget, what steps will be taken to identify and redress this issue in the projected budget for 22-23? Thirdly, in particular, could the council officers provide information about what steps have been taken to fulfil the council's resolution from December the 9th to identify properties for acquisition in South Melbourne, Balaclava and Eastern Kilda? And finally, could the council advise why it has not considered the Green Line as a priority project, since it would seem that many in the community and beyond do so? How can the small projects agreed in advance be brought forward to start immediately as a matter of priority, separating those for trial as against those for action. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No, thank you for the question. There's a fair bit in that, so we might have to take a fair bit on notice, I think. But I'll go to Lachlan or Tony. Can I get some direction on where?
Through you, Mayor, most of that I don't have any information here to answer, so I'd have to take most of it on notice. What I can say in relation to Green Line, I think that involves discussions with VicTrack, and the council just can't commence that. In terms of what works, the other stuff I'd have to take on notice.
That's perfectly reasonable and no troubles with that at all. So we'll take those 4 points on notice and make sure we respond accordingly. Alex, welcome back. I'm now call upon Alex Darton to submit a question to the council.
Thank you very much, Council, Mayor. This is a continuation of, not the last one, but one before that at St Kilda Town Hall. I asked about the medium strips on Brighton Road. And so since then you've informed me that it's to do with, you consulted the public and you did a survey, and the survey was, I think, 53 to 47 in favour of keeping the maintenance going, yet you sided on dropping the maintenance. This is with Vic Roads. And so the question is, with the numbers you had for the survey, 0.002% of the population of City of Port Phillip, how did you come up with this as a choice? Was it like, it's more of a mechanical of how council works, but was it the councillors decided to, or was it so it's a, how did 150 years of tradition be overturned on 0.002% of the population? The other question is, I've been speaking to Vic Roads, and so before I give up on you guys, do you want to get back involved with, which is potentially something beneficial, and Vic Roads, you could even see that Vic Roads' money was like a subsidy for doing the other parts of your greening planning and whatnot, but would you get back on board with these medium strips that are potentially very profitable for everybody?
Thank you. Don't ever give up on us, Alex.
Excellent. I'll try not to then. Thank you.
Lachlan Johnson, go ahead.
Thank you, Alex, for your questions. In terms of the first question, so when council originally consulted on getting out of the agreement with Vic Roads, the maintenance agreement, so there was some targeted consultation that was done on council's website, which was through the Have Your Say, which was where there was the 56%. In addition to that, there was also engagement done through the council plan and budget process as well. So like council is doing at the moment, the draft budget, including any chain or proposed changes to service levels, were put out to the community and submissions were invited before council made a decision at that point. The decision of council in that budget was to cease subsidising the maintenance of Vic Roads work. To your second question, so council was receiving, I think it was around $100,000 a year from Vic Roads, and as outlined at the time, it was costing council costing the ratepayers of council many times that cost, hundreds of thousands of dollars more than that to actually deliver the service that was contracted to it by Vic Roads. And council resolved as part of the budget process to cease that subsidy and therefore to stop providing that service under agreement. It is the prerogative of council. If council wanted to re-enter into that agreement, it could do so, provided that Vic Roads and the Department of Transport were willing to re-enter into a similar arrangement in the future. I'm more than happy to have a discussion with you offline about how you can provide a submission into the budget process at this point to make a recommendation to council to do so.
Yeah. Thank you.
Go for it. Councillor Crawford.
It actually might be a question for Alex. When you're referring to the trees, you are only referring to the trees that are in the median strips and the dividers, because it's different to the ones that are on the side of the roads.
Yeah, so the nature strips are yours.
Yes, there's not even that many trees at the moment.
There is a bunch that are dying or dead.
Yeah,
there's also there's no replacement. Like the little ones that keep dying. Everything's dying along those. It needs something done to it.
Yeah.
And
okay.
so,
but
so a bunch of dying.
I'm just checking that you are referring to the median strip ones only, not the big plane
No,
trees.
the big ones. I know they're done, but that's in a whole different set of things. Cheers.
Thanks for coming again, Alex. We appreciate it.
No problem. They seem to have got stuck with my chain, so give me a moment. Thank you.
It's all right. I call upon Joe Leong speaking to item 7.1, which is the petition response into loss of car parking in Park Street. And welcome. Thanks for joining us, Joe.
Thank you.
Just state your name and your suburb, Joe. That'd be great.
Joe Leong, South Melbourne.
Thank you. Go ahead.
We, the Park Street Neighbourhood Group at South Melbourne, would like to comment on the officer recommendation in relation to our petition against the loss of 12 car park spaces in Park Street, South Melbourne. Firstly, the petition is against the loss of 12 car park spaces, including residential and visitor, but not the mere residential car park spaces. The officer proposed to convert six short-term spaces at Eastern Road Reserve to longer-term car park spaces. These 6 spaces are already available to residents, and hence there is no net gain in parking space. It is a mere relocation of car park spaces from one category to another. Total parking stock is still being reduced by 6 to 7, so there's no creation of new car park. So that's the first point. Secondly, the petition is against the loss of 12 parking spaces in Park Street, not in the Eastern Road. All signatory to the petition live in Park Street, closer to the Kingway's end, which is about 2 or 3 blocks away from the Eastern Road Reserve. You may as well give us parking right in Clarenton Road. The point is that the majority of car spaces is taken away from Park Street near Kingsway, and the replacement car park is all allocated at the Eastern Road end of Park Street, 2 to 3 blocks away. We asked the council to consider redesign the bike lane so that less car park spaces are taken away from us at the Park Street and near the Kingsway. Thirdly, the childcare, formerly a church building, was categorized as residential a few years ago in 2017/18, before 2021. Since the Gurner Group gained council approval to build apartment, therefore, the officer argument on parking management policy 2021 is not valid because of the timing. All in all, changes result in the loss of 20% car park spaces in Park Street, meaning 7 out of the total 31 car park spaces in Park Street has been taken away. And we have documentation backed by the council and the Gurner report, which is submitted to VCAT. So this is not a figure that we make up. And I would like council to clarify why such a colossal 20% of car park taken away is considered a good design. Definitely not for the residents who live in Park Street nearer to the Kingsway end. We have a feeling the officer or the team is keen to go ahead with the project at all costs, meaning the protected bike lane, ignoring our feedback and petition to provide recommendations that sound good in report but make no practical sense at all to us who
come
live
to the
in
end,
the
if you
area.
could, Joe. Sorry to interrupt.
Almost
Come to
there.
the end.
Thank you. Again, we urge the council to talk to us before going ahead with the project. All petitioners are keen to help the team at the council to provide a better outcome and minimising the loss of car park. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. We'll, a couple of councillors might take up some of the points that you've referred to there when we get to that item also, but thank you very much for coming to read that statement to us. We very much appreciate it. I call upon 2 special people. Frida Ehrlich, if you'd like to come up and go to the microphone. I understand you both wish to speak together, is that right?
I thought it would be more entertaining.
Frida and Carolee Ling, if you wish to come up as also. Feel free to separate tables or same table, up to you. So both of you obviously speaking to item 9.1, which is a positive ageing policy, draft policy objectives. And also to item 9.2, as I understand it. But let's start with item 9.1. Go ahead. If you could get you to state your name and your suburbs, both of you, and I'm happy to just hit the button if you could, Frida. Try again. Is there a red light in front of you there?
Yeah.
There you go, loud and clear.
Frida Ehrlich, St Kilda.
Coralie Ling, St Kilda.
Great. Go ahead, guys.
Yeah. Hi, I am the chair of the Older Persons Advisory Committee, and Coralie is the deputy chair. I'm delighted that we seem to be taking up quite a bit of the agenda tonight, and I think that that reflects the fact that we are being listened to. And the question that I always begin with is, who is the Older Persons Advisory Committee? And apart from Coralie and I, the age range are between 60 and 94, and I think it's very impressive that in our 22nd year, this shows that it's a kind of a democratic process where some of the people that haven't been listened to in the past are getting an opportunity to have a committee, and a well-resourced committee, and one that now I feel that we are being heard and appreciated. We have officers coming and consulting, and we advise on all sorts of things. And Coralie will go through those goals. And really, we also feel thrilled that we are having the positive ageing policy, because as our council rep, Councillor Martin, is fond of saying, once you get a policy, there'll be a plan and there'll be budget to go with it. And we feel that that is the third tranche of what we are trying to do. We are being heard, we are being appreciated, and now we want action. So we'll go through the 5 goals that you'll find in the in our plan, in our policy, and in our annual report. And I'll just talk about one, and then Coralie will inform you of the rest. And that is the importance of outdoor spaces and the environment to older people. And our committee is really aimed at the things that may fall in between the cracks. And really the outdoor spaces and environment is something that we go on with. Talking about lots of toilets, we want smooth pavements, we want comfortable street furniture, and we want shade. And we would like the council to consider the special needs of older people in all of these things. And I'm fond of quoting the fact that the WHO, the World Health Organization, says if there is good things for older people, it means it's good for everyone. So please take that into consideration. Older people are also the most vulnerable group when it comes to changes in the environment. And we, as a committee, can continue to strongly support the work of environment groups such as the Eco Centre, Pecan, the Green Line that Helen was advocating for, and Nature Strip Gardens. And now over to Coralie.
The positive ageing policy that the council is implementing is top of our priorities, and we were working with the committee that are doing that policy. And one of the things that has come out of it, which is obvious probably to everyone, is that we older people want to stay in our homes as long as possible, and to have help when it's necessary to stay in our homes. And so, for example, I myself this morning had a person from the council to come and work and help me clean the house. And then a little bit later on, I attended a exercise class, which develops the muscles of older people so that we can all continue to be mobile. So these are just a couple of the things that aged care services provide from the City of Port Phillip. They're so important. We want them to continue, and they're so reliable, and the staff people are so well trained. So it's really important that these services continue. Another of our goals is about communications, and especially we would like to see diversity on paper as well as online. And one of the reasons is that not all of us have digital literacy in the older age group, but we do want to have, and there are some classes enabling digital literacy. We want those to continue so that we will be better at digital literacy. We also would like the council website to be easier to manage for those who are not able to excel at digital literacy. It's really important that there be good communication so that the council's work can continue. And so the idea of being able to meet person on person, as was in tonight's copy of the diversity, is really important, but we need people to know that they can meet person on person and where, and that's why we need paper as well as digital. In our communications within our committee, we have been able to communicate with the multicultural community and with the multi-faith community, and just recently with the LGBTIQA community. So we think that's really important, and we would also like to see a disability committee set up by the council for communications as well as obviously for practical reasons. Another of our goals is housing, and especially as we know that it's a big problem for older women to find affordable housing, and so we want to advocate for housing for older women in particular. And then finally, we want to say thanks. Thanks very much to our councillor Peter Martin, who has been working with us and conveying the council concerns to us, and in turn conveying some of our concerns to the council. We really appreciate his work with us, and we also appreciate the visit of the Mayor, who has come to our meeting several times. It's good to have the Mayor with our committee, and we appreciate very much the work of the staff people who work with this committee, Laura Catapan and Kathy Horsfield.
Thank you. Now stay there, because you were also talking to item 9.2, which is acceptance of the...
Well, we actually rolled it into one. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We just,
I should have announced that before you got started. So,
feel confident that you will accept both of these reports.
No troubles at all. Councillors, any questions?
And the other thing is I welcome all the other councillors to come and pop in, as the Mayor does, and just come and see what we do in person.
Great. Thank you, and thank you for your service. We greatly appreciate it. I call upon Katrina Finlay, speaking to item 9.3, which is the Adventure Playgrounds Extension Opening Hours Trial Findings. Katrina, can you hear us?
Through you, Mayor. Katrina's unable to attend, but I do have a statement submitted that I can read on behalf.
Thank you.
And the statement reads, these comments and questions relate to how the playgrounds have been described in the documents and provided to the community about the trial. Information which describes the adventure playgrounds has been directly lifted from the context section of the 2018 Adventure Playground Consultation Report. However, omissions have been made. The 2018 report describes the 2 adventure playgrounds as being staffed by specialist play workers who facilitate play. It details that the playgrounds were staffed when open and that staff ran in and out of hour programs. This is how members of the community viewed the adventure playgrounds as continuing to run up until the trial began. In contrast, the promotional material for the trial states that the playgrounds are only open when staff are there running programs. This presents a simplified version of the features and operations of the playgrounds, especially for those not familiar with how they work. Adventure playgrounds such as St Kilda and Skinner's require the presence of play workers whenever open. If these staff are removed, the playgrounds then become something different. Given the impact a lack of staffing will have on this model of playground, can you please explain how participants in the consultation have been given enough information to make informed comments or decisions? Why have the features and opening conditions of the playgrounds been altered so dramatically? Has their model of operation been changed? If so, when did this occur, and were the community consulted and or informed of any changes?
Fantastic. Do we get Louisa back?
Through you, Mayor. No, we don't have Louise online, but I do have a statement that I can read on Louise's behalf.
If you could, please go ahead.
And sorry, this is a question to Council rather than a statement, and the question reads, as recently as yesterday, further consultant reports have been uploaded to the Have Your Say website relating to the 3 early learning centres Council is currently considering selling. These consultant reports include access reports, building condition reports, rental assessment reports, geotechnical reports, property risk assessments, plus many more. Can Council please explain how these reports will be used to assist councillors in reaching a decision in relation to the future of these 3 centres? Further, can Council please explain how much has been spent in obtaining the various reports? Where did this funding come from?
Tony Keenan.
Through you, Mayor. A number of the reports have been completed at the request of the community centres and community consultations. In terms of council using the reports, some of them will be used. It will depend on what next steps council wishes to take. But some of those may well be relevant in assisting council to make a decision. In terms of how much has been spent, I'll have to take that on notice, and the funding came from the property budget.
Thanks, Tony Keenan. Councillors, we've also received further submissions which the Head of Governance will read out on behalf of people that have submitted statements and also questions. So the first one comes from Rowena Fitzgerald.
Through you, Mayor. The question reads, at the City of Port Phillip Council meeting on 2 March, Council moved a motion to adjust the time frame of the sale of 17 Eildon Road, St Kilda, the site of Eildon Road Childcare and Kindergarten. The motion included a request from councillors for the CEO to bring back options for support for the centres during this process, such as but not limited to a reduction in maintenance levies. Has the CEO provided councillors with a list of options for additional support for each of the 3 childcare centres affected by the proposed sale? And if so, can those options be shared with the centres?
Tony Keenan.
Through you, Mayor, that's being worked through. We're assessing the impact on enrolments at the centres, and then we will bring an option to council.
Thank you very much. The next statement is from Rachel Scotland, is it?
Correct, through you, Mayor. The question reads, given the complex nature of the challenges faced and the elongated nature of the consultation process, it has become clear that Council will require more time to consider the multitude of viable alternatives, delaying the decision further. Although the Avenue Children's Centre will remain open until 2026 regardless of the outcome of the process, its lease is due to expire at the end of 2022. Eildon Road and Elwood Children's Centre similarly have leases due to expire at the end of this year. When will Council be providing clarity on lease arrangements with the centres? We request that Council provide a further 12 months lease to the end of 2023 at a minimum for all centres immediately.
Thank you. And Tony Keenan again.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, it's Council's intention to make sure that appropriate leases are in place for all centres prior to any existing leases ending. Officers will follow up with each of the centres individually on the timeline for leases being renewed to provide certainty for all involved. The length of lease will depend on Council's decisions in coming months.
Thanks, Tony Keenan. There's been 2 further submissions in relation to item 7.1, which is the petition response, the first of which is from Dr Peter Bone.
Through you, Mayor, the statement reads, the report does not satisfy the concerns of petitioners. Only 1 bay was assigned a childcare permit zone, not 2 as stated in the Council response. The permit restriction was permit zone 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday to Saturday, childcare users only. Even this bay should not be as readily dismissed, as the bay was available to residents and community alike after hours and on Sunday. There is a total of 11 spaces being removed from Park Street, not 10 as stated in the response. Only the proposed 4 taxi zone parking bays can be considered as replacement for this loss. as these 4 spaces have previously been unavailable to residents in the community. The proposed change to 6 paid parking bays in Eastern Road cannot be considered as a replacement for the loss of spaces on Park Street. It is misleading to suggest that the change to these spaces would result in maintaining the same number of spaces. The proposed 6 spaces are already in existence, have already been available and are supporting the parking needs of the community residents and their visitors. Accordingly, there is a net loss of 7 parking bays in Park Street. There is a total of 31 parking bays available to residents on Park Street between Kingsway and Moray Street. This net loss represents almost 1/4 of these available spaces. If the paid parking bays in Park Street are included, the net loss represents 16% of the total number of bays in Park Street between Kingsway and Moray Street. This is an enormous and unfair loss of such a scarce resource for a burdened community, particularly when it could be mitigated by implementing a more moderate design plan.
Thank you very much. And the final submission in relation to the same model is from Devinder Bendy.
Through you, Mayor, the statement comes from an owner of a restaurant at Park Street, South Melbourne, and reads, "It's our grave concern regarding losing so many car spaces, which is already at a mere survival rate. It's appreciative that other users have a right to share these spaces, but not at a cost of residents and businesses in the precinct who contribute financially." In this same precinct, about 32 years ago, the council took liberty of making part of the car spaces into permit zones. Why? Even though when the City Edge complex was built, it was built on provision the apartments would provide their share of their car spaces within the complex. But as a petition was provided by the City Edge complex, council gave this application and the car spaces were deemed the rights of the complex residents. And now this is happening for bike riders. Where are our rights for people who invested in brick and mortar and above all contributed to society and bringing South Melbourne to its likeable suburb?
Terrific. We're done, right? That concludes it. Yep, thank you. I didn't miss any. And I think we've referred to everyone. We have. All right, that's item number 4. Councillors, let's move to item number 5, which is your chance to ask councillor question time. So, councillors, do you have any questions of officers? Go ahead, Councillor Consolo. It's okay.
With the St Kilda Road junction, the bike lane there heading north, it's quite a disturbing interface of many cars and bike riders. Has there been any further discussions with the pop-up bike road program from DOT or any other projects like the St Kilda Road in the last 6 months to a year?
Brian T.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor, I can indicate that Council did seek to include the St Kilda bike, or the corridor part of the St Kilda Junction part as part of our pop-up bike proposal, but it was outside of the scope because of the complexity. It certainly wasn't a pop-up bike. It didn't meet their requirements. More broadly, this is, as you've indicated, quite a dangerous intersection, and Council has advocated for some time for a dedicated bike corridor. We recently, some 2 years ago, saw the death of a cyclist, and as part of Council's response, we wrote to the former Mayor. The government did some 4 years ago commit to the St Kilda Road Bike Safety Corridor, and there were some delays in terms of the design, in terms of the delivery of that. However, I am pleased to advise that in yesterday's state budget, some $817,000 was allocated in the next financial year to design the St Kilda Road Bike Safety Corridor, and an additional $3 million was added to the total budget of that project, which is some $28 million. We do meet regularly with the Department of Transport, and at our next meeting we will seek to understand the design process that they've got in mind. I would we are somewhat cautious in the sense that the St Kilda Road Bike Safety Corridor is a long corridor, and even with that additional money, it is unlikely to complete all of the corridor. So we will need to continue to advocate to make sure that the junction is included in both the design and the subsequent delivery.
Thanks, Brian T. Councillors, any further questions from you? Okay, let's move on. Thank you. Item number 6 is the sealing schedule. There's no items to be sealed at tonight's meeting, so let's now move to item number 7, which is obviously petitions and joint letters. Councillors, we have one petition on tonight's agenda, which is item 7.1, the petition involving lost car parking spaces in Park Street. Do councillors have any questions of the officers in relation to this item, please? Councillor Consolo, thank you.
I'll take up some of the speaker's questions, so I'm pulling them up. One was in relation to the number of childcare spots from memory, that the report says there's 2 and the speaker says there's 1.
Brian T.
I might have to just refer to Tom Mason. I think there are 2 spots, but 1 permit. But let me just check if I've got that right, Tom, if you're available, please.
Tom Mason.
I'm available, thank you. Through you, Mayor. The 2 spaces is based on the linear distance between the 2 signs there, in which 2 vehicles can fit within that. It is quite narrow, but 2 spaces can fit in that, and that's why we've recorded that as 2 spaces.
Go ahead, Councillor Consolo.
If we were to look at redesigning this, for example, do you think that there is even capacity to gain more parking spaces, or does it? Could you get 1 more? Could you get 2 more? Or is it you have a bike lane? Maybe it's emerging. If you could speak to where the car space losses are.
Brian T.
Thank you, Mayor. I think through you, Mayor, that we have moved now from, I suppose, the consultation phase where we had, I think, some 5,000 letters that have gone out, and we previously had the council consideration of this matter, including at that stage we brought forward the petition. So the difficulty with reconsideration, I think, is that since that council meeting we've now entered into an MOU with the department and indeed an agreement with the contractor. However, having said that, we are very keen in the delivery stage to see if we can find any additional parking spaces, and there may be, and I don't want to raise, but we may be able to find 1 as we deliver the project.
Great. Councillor Crawford?
I was just wondering if you could clarify where near Eastern Road Reserve are those other 6? Because they're saying it's a lot of blocks away, and I just couldn't. Which side of Eastern Road is it located, please?
Thanks, Councillor Crawford. Brian T.
And again, I might ask Tom Mason to
Great.
answer that.
Go ahead,
question.
Tom.
Through you, Mayor. So all the parking spaces that are mentioned in the report are actually on Park Street. It's the Eastern Road Reserve that they sit in front of. So Eastern Road is between Heather Street, where the roundabout is, the Eastern Road Reserve is between Eastern Road and the Heather Street roundabout, and that's where the parking spaces that we are suggesting will change parking controls. That's also the location outside the reserve where the taxi bays are. So they are on Park Street, they're just not in front of residential properties.
Thank you, Tom. Councillors, any further questions? Okay. Thanks, Brian, and thanks, Tom.
Through you, Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead.
You've got a question behind you.
Oh, do I? I'm on the... No, it's okay. Councillors Clark and Sirikoff, if you want to use the chat, I'm on the WhatsApp. I'm looking at it attentively, but go ahead, Councillor Sirikoff.
Sorry about that, Mayor. My question is related to an earlier speaker, Joe, who said that his group would like to meet with Council to discuss the issues, and I'm just wondering if it's possible for Council to meet with this group to maybe look at solutions which might have been overlooked.
Brian T.
I'm going to just... I'm reasonably confident that Tom and the team will have met with this group, but again, without raising expectations, just because we are about to commence the delivery phase, we'd be more than happy to, consistent with that, meet with the group again.
Yep, and obviously councillors have the ability to make amendments, etc. If they wish to do so, we'll make that consideration at tonight's meeting. Do you wish to add something, CEO?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. The officers are implementing a previous council decision, which has already begun to be implemented. So I don't think we'd be in a position, even under a rescission motion under our governance rules, to change that decision, given the decision is already being implemented. But we're happy, as Mr T is saying, to, in that implementation, try and address the ongoing concerns of residents where we can, but not where it's going to change the implementation of a previous council decision.
Thank you for that clarification. Councillor Sirikoff, are there any further questions before I move on? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was on mute. So, in response to that question from the officer, does that mean that councillors have no option but to vote this motion up?
Well, it's a procedural question you're asking there, so perhaps I'll ask some clarity, because I won't allow that question to go to an officer, because I think it's a bit difficult for them to do that. But the answer to your question, effectively from a procedural point of view under the governance rules, is that is the decision which council needs to make here this evening. So a councillor will put a motion, whether it be the officer's recommendation or something else, and that is the decision that will be made. So that's the way we'll view it. So I don't think the officers need to respond to that question. Councillors, any further questions? Okay, I'm looking for a mover of the officer's recommendation or something else. Councillor Martin to move. Councillor Copsey to second. Go ahead, Councillor Martin.
Firstly, I thank the petitioners for their petition. I thank Mr T and his department for saying that they're happy to meet with those people involved in the petition to see if there is any potential for any fine-tuning of the parking alterations in Park Street. I also note, though, that council's a long way down the track in entering into this proposal, and there would be all sorts of complications if council was to do a U-turn on the process. Lastly, I note that this is a temporary proposal, and council will get a chance to review this hopefully in the near future as soon as the new tramline comes in there. So we're not locking things in long term. So I think, given all the discussions that we've had, and given the fact that Mr T and his department are happy to meet with the petition to see if there's any leeway to acquiesce to at least some of their requests, I think we should go ahead and accept the petition and move on.
Thanks, Councillor Martin. And Councillor Copsey. Do you wish to speak? Yep.
Thank you. Yes, well, just to echo those comments and what's in the motion, thank those who've presented the petition for raising these concerns, which I note I believe have been also incorporated into the previous council decision. We received this petition in time that we were able to take some of this into consideration. So we've spoken at length on this project, and I've said before we've come to a position that, you know, I preferred the original design on this, but we've got an outcome here which achieves multiple benefits, and I'm very appreciative of everybody's diligence and time in progressing this much needed changes to the street, which I think overall are going to lead to much increased amenity and a stickier street, a nicer place to spend time and to move through as well. So thank you to the petitioners, and confident that we will continue to seek outcomes that are beneficial as we move through implementation of the previous council decision.
Thanks, Councillor Copsey. Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm not supportive of this proposal. I think we cannot keep supporting the continual loss of car parks and the significant, and underestimate and ignore the significant impact this has on our residents. I've said this many times before, and that providing parking in other streets, not near the resident's house or apartments, is not a replacement for car parks that are convenient, and even if they have to walk a few car parks down, you don't get the car park right in front of your street. It's at least in your same street. To suggest that you can then park your car a couple of streets around the corner and that's still a car park, it's just not real. And I would challenge each councillor and council officer, if this was us, would we be happy to walk a couple of streets to have to get back to our house, carrying our groceries, maybe in the rain, maybe trying to get our children wherever we need to go. I'm just not supportive of council to continually put the bike lanes before our residents. It's our residents who pay our rates. It's the residents who choose to live in our municipality that we support, and they expect us to look after their basic requirements, one of which is to park their car near their property if they choose to have a car. And I think there's a few things residents require: their rubbish to be picked up, the parks to be looked after, and to be able to park a car. And I think we all enjoy that convenience, and most of us have it. And I don't think that realistically we'd like to lose it. And for those reasons, I won't be supporting this motion, and have a lot of empathy for the petitioners and the people that have come to speak tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Clark. Councillor Sirikoff.
Thank you, Mayor. As we know, the petition brought to council is about the loss of car parking spaces in Park Street and not in Eastern Road or any other neighbouring streets. As stated by a speaker earlier on tonight, the residents live 2 to 3 blocks away from the car parks allocated to Eastern Road, and I don't see this as a solution for them. The removal of 12 car spaces is taking away their existing amenity. So while I appreciate the work done by the officers, I do not see that the redesign, as is being presented to us, has addressed the petitioners' concerns. And then there is the loss of car parking for Betty's Curry restaurant, which is an institution. The petitions, I'm glad to hear that council officer will be meeting with, we're always prepared to meet with this group and to maybe find a better solution. And I think we should be maybe looking at that better solution even before we put in a temporary pop-up bike lane, because we should do it now before it becomes permanent. So given this, I feel like the design needs a rework and taking into consideration on-site feedback from the residents, so I'll not be supporting it.
Thanks, Councillor Sirikoff. Any further councillors wish to speak to the item? Councillor Baxter, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Baxter, sorry.
I felt after Councillor Clark's comments that perhaps a councillor should stick up for the literally tens of thousands of bike riders that are our residents and ratepayers in the city of Port Phillip that deserve safety. They deserve to be able to travel around in a safe and protected way, and that this argument that we should not prioritise their safety, sacrifice all of that for the convenience of a location of parking right outside your own dwelling is needlessly setting two elements of our community against each other. I do not think that it is council's job to ensure that everyone can park directly outside their own home. It's literally not possible. We have a very dense municipality, and as we grow denser, it's honestly living in a fantasy land to expect that you can always do that. And I think people who live in this area know that. I think even the petitioners would acknowledge that it's going to be harder to find parks because if more people have cars. And one of the best ways to reduce the amount of cars that are competing for those car parks is to encourage bike riding and to keep them safe. One of the best ways to encourage bike riding and to keep them safe is to establish dedicated infrastructure for that. So all of this infrastructure is a way to keep those elements of our community that ride bikes and deserve to be kept safe and protected. It will also take care of those elements of our community that need to use cars and park, and that the general loss of a few car parking here and there will absolutely be offset by the amount of people who will switch from cars to riding bikes. So I grow really frustrated with this continual depiction of this as bikes versus people. These are people on the bikes. These are our people. These are our residents. This infrastructure is solving a lot of very difficult problems at once, and there will always be ways that we can do things better. And a lot of our bike projects have gone through a number of redesigns in order to try and do the best by everybody. But we need to acknowledge that we have a large and diverse community, and we should be taking care of them all.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Baxter. Any other councillors wish to speak to the item? Councillor Consolo, go ahead.
Thank you. I can also empathise with the residents' concerns in the restaurant there that this change could be difficult to adjust to. But I think that it's really important that this petition came about, and we have considered it already, because a lot of changes already were implemented because of the feedback and the advice. I think that's really important to acknowledge that you did help shape a lot here, and that the width of some of the buffers and things like that. So also we're going to get 40 kilometres per hour through there, so which is a bit safer in general. And I'm pleased to hear where you're speaking tonight that if there are more opportunities to find more car parks, we will still do that. It's not that we're definitely sticking with what's been shown today. It's still an evolving process as we go through the process. So thank you for bringing the petition, and I appreciate that this will affect your life, and I'm sorry for that with the car parking, but I'm hoping that the safer cycling and scooters, things that we're all using, different ways of getting around, will help some of the residents in that area and the business. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Consolo. Any further councillors wish to speak to the item? Councillor Martin.
I agree with Councillor Clark that we as a duty as a council to make sure that we look after the amenity for our residents as much as we can, whether they're residents who live on a particular streetscape or whether they're residents who use transport such as bicycles. This Park Street streetscape has come up before council in a number of iterations in the last 18 months. The design that we accepted most recently is not the design that was originally proposed, and I know that there are some very strong advocates of bicycle use in the City of Port Phillip who believe that we haven't given them the full amenity that they'd like. I notice there are many residents who believe that we haven't provided enough parking spaces. It's very difficult to make everyone happy, but we've worked through a number of compromises. As I mentioned earlier, I note that our council officers are prepared to meet with the petitioners to see if there are any car park savings that we can make. I also note that this is only a temporary streetscape proposal. We'll have a second bite of the cherry in a couple of years' time, so I believe we should pass the motion and get on with the job.
Thanks, Councillor Martin. I'm going to put the motion under division because I know there's a couple of people voting against it. So all those in favour, if you could raise your hand. Councillor Bond, Councillor Copsey, Councillor Consolo, Councillor Martin, Councillor Crawford, Deputy Mayor Baxter. Those against? Councillor Pearl, Councillor Sirikoff and Councillor Clark. The motion is carried. Let's now move to item... sorry, pardon me? Oh, okay, no troubles. There we go. Councillors, let's now move to items 8 through 13, which is the presentation of reports. The first report is item number 9.1, which is the positive ageing policy, draft policy objectives. Councillors, any questions of officers in relation to this report? Looking for a mover of the officer's recommendation or something else? Councillor Martin to move, Councillor Crawford to second. Councillor Martin.
I don't think I need to say a whole lot because the representatives of OPAC have spoken very, very eloquently, but I will say this is the first stage of a three-step process where we're developing Council's positive ageing policy. Firstly, you'll note that in our initial council plan there was no mention of a positive ageing policy. We've come up with what we believe is a far better title for the policy, which talks about how we can make our city a better place for those people, for everyone, but particularly including those people who are perhaps over age 55 plus. We've come up with 5 major objectives of this policy. We're going to work with council officers over the next couple of months to come up with a draft full policy if you accept these 5 objectives. This will go out to consultation in August. It will come back to council before the end of the year for adoption. And if it is well, firstly, I'm hoping that the design of the policy itself will make sure that all of our various areas in council will be having input to make sure that we're going to address any possible contingency that could affect anyone, but particularly those people who are age 55 plus in our municipality in any of the issues where council is operating, and that once we've done that, we hope through the consultation process we can make it bigger and better, and I look forward to moving that we accept the full positive ageing policy before the end of this year.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Crawford.
I think that our Older Persons Advisory Committee are the hardest working advisory committee we have at Council, at this point in time anyway. So I just want to thank all the members who are very active and very involved. And I think as we know that if we improve the city for young and old, then it benefits everyone. So thank you for all the hard work that's gone into this draft.
Thank you, Councillor Crawford. Any other councillors wish to speak to this report? So the motion for this report, I should say. Okay, Councillor Martin, wish to close? No, I'll put that motion to you. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Let's move to item 9.2, councillors, which is the acceptance of the Older Persons Advisory Committee Annual Report for 2021. Questions? Looking for a mover. Councillor Martin to move, Councillor Crawford to second. Councillor Martin.
Just bear with me while I get the actual motion in front of me. I see that in 3.2 we don't have the name of the new member of the committee. I do have that name.
Thank you. Sorry. That's a very good point.
So it's Bill Sialtsis.
And I presume the second is okay with that?
Yes. So it's Bill is T-S-I-A-L-T-S. We interviewed Bill earlier this week. He'll be an outstanding representative on the committee. So if this motion is accepted, we can please make sure that his name is added to that. And while that's being changed on the screen, if you get the opportunity, not just members of the council, but anyone else in the municipality, please read the annual report of the Older Persons Advisory Committee. It's a wonderful document. These are a group of people who are there looking after not just the best interests of their own cohort, which are those people 55 plus, but they have a deep and long concern and passion for the city of Port Phillip, and they're trying to make this place the best place they can for everyone, as well as for those people 55 plus. And I've got a very, very, very long list of all the things that they've done. I'll pick about 3 and leave the rest for you to read. So, for example, they organise an annual Seniors Festival. For those of you who, if you went online last year, you would have seen, in a COVID-safe environment, you would have seen one of the councillors at the Seniors Disco online, quite entertaining. A passion, as our Chair Frieda talked about earlier, is making sure that all members of our community are able to have access to all of our council facilities. So whether it's safety through public lighting, public toilets, additional seating, drinking fountains, the South Melbourne market. So at that level, OPAC's always looking to make sure that our city is a very safe place, not just for the older people, but for all of our people as well. They're happy to be involved with council and consulting in any major issue that council's involved in. So, for example, last year, OPAC itself advocated very strongly for council to adopt a climate emergency action plan and made submissions successfully to council. So there's an example of OPAC not just looking after the interests of its own members, but doing something that they believe will look after the future of the city of Port Phillip. They were very strongly in advising that we set up a LGBTIQA advisory committee to represent another group in this community who perhaps haven't been fully represented as best that we can. I could go on and on and on here. It's a wonderful, wonderful document. They are a fantastic group of people. I feel very humbled to be part of their committee, and hopefully I can represent their views at council, and I commend their report to you.
Thanks, Councillor Martin. Councillor Crawford? No? Okay. Any other councillors wish to speak to the item? Councillor Copsey, go ahead, please.
Yeah, just briefly to thank the members of the committee for their fantastic work and echo those comments. One of the things I most want to commend them for is their focus not only on those direct policy areas around our positive ageing policy and so on, but the breadth of issues that the Older Persons Advisory Committee enthusiastically engages with and provides us with excellent quality and really very thoughtful contributions on a range of topics. It's much appreciated, the endeavours of the committee, and it's always so high quality. This year's report is no exception. And I'm very pleased to hear that we'll have a new member joining to add to the diversity of views and quality of advice that we continue to receive from the Older Persons Advisory Committee. Thank you so much for your work.
Thanks, Councillor Copsey. Any further councillors wish to speak to the item? Councillor Martin, don't wish to close. I'll now put that to you. Councillors, all those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thanks so much. Let's now move to item 9.3, Adventure Playgrounds Extended Opening Hours Trial Findings. Councillors, I'll take up the questions that were issued in one of our submissions previously. Do you need me to reiterate the questions? I think you've already got them in writing. Perhaps if you can run through the answers for the benefit of the submitter and councillors also. Thank you.
Thank you. And through you, Mayor. So there's two questions. In relation to the first one, as outlined in the report, once COVID restrictions eased, the staffing returned to the adventure playgrounds in line with our pre-COVID operating model. And staff were on site during the consultation period for some of that time. The staff we use in adventure playgrounds, while they have great skills and experience, do not have specific or specialist adventure playground or play qualifications. They are generalist recreation and or youth workers, as there are no specific adventure playground qualifications per se. The two consultation methods used in the trial did not require participants to have an in-depth knowledge of the operating model, as we were seeking to maximise the participation in a consultation on how people used and experienced the extended opening hours of the playground. In relation to the second question that was submitted, which was around why features and opening conditions of the playground have been altered, as noted in the report, there have been no changes to the staffing or operating model.
Very comprehensive. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Councillors, any further questions on this item? Okay. Looking for a mover of the office. Sorry, Councillor Bond.
Sorry, I'll just ask a question, given I've been asked it twice today. When will the trampoline be reinstated? At St Kilda.
Felicity Leahy.
Thank you. We're going to commence construction around the 16th of May. It will take about 4 days for each site. We'll do it sequentially.
Okay, great. Councillor Bond would like to open that important piece of infrastructure. Sorry.
The Bond trampoline.
Any further questions of officers, councillors? Okay, looking for a mover of the officer's recommendation or something else? Councillor Martin, okay. Councillor Bond the second. Go ahead, Councillor Martin.
Well, for over 25 years I've been a very, very active observer of our adventure playgrounds, firstly as a parent, mainly at the St Kilda Adventure Playground, and then as a school principal for many, many years at Skinner's, and they are marvellous places, and so many families and so many children have benefited from accessing them. And we've seen the difficulties when we haven't been able to fully utilise them during COVID, the community concerns that we've got back. Our community really value these places. They're very keen to get them up and running. And I note, if I can just quote from section 3.9 of the motion, we're directing officers to commence consultation and engagement over 22-23 on the planned upgrades informed by the above vision and principles, with a particular focus on hearing from children and young people. So we still want to be involved with our users to make sure we get this right and we get the best bang for our buck in delivering two outstanding adventure playgrounds. As I say, if future generations get as much satisfaction as my children and the children I work with as a school principal get out of these adventure playgrounds, then I think we'll have done a very good job.
Thanks, Councillor Martin. Councillor Bond, go ahead.
I didn't plan on speaking, but I will. I think just looking at these survey results, there's a couple of very clear outcomes here. One is that people love these adventure playgrounds. They would like to see them open for more hours, but a little concerned that if they're not staffed while they're open, will they still be as safe as they are whilst these playgrounds are staffed, and that's something for council to address in its response here. The second thing is that people really love that trampoline. Came through loud and clear, and yeah, I look forward to seeing it open in a couple of weeks' time.
Thanks, Councillor Bond. Councillor Consolo.
Thank you. I also made a point to go down during those extended hours times to make sure that I've seen them in different operating models. And overall, these are just fantastic spaces. We really enjoyed our time there. I think the vision and design principles listed here are very good. They're a good start to a very long process. And we really need to get Skinner's back up to being usable. Right now, with half of it fenced off, it's not good. So that would be good to see. That's good to see the 300K there to rectify. But I really recommend to our local families to take note of playgrounds and the equipment and the things that you really want in these long term. You might be at other playgrounds around Melbourne. It might be on Pinterest. If we can just come up with these fun ideas to really consider and bring them forth in the design process, we'll end up with a really good result. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Consolo. Any other councillors wishing to speak to this item? Okay. Councillor Martin, you wish to close? No. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Let's now move to report number 12.1, which is the St Kilda Festival 22-23. Councillors' officers are waiting for your questions. That's right. Take your time. Councillor Consolo.
Would councillors need to give direction to review the St Kilda Festival following the 2023 event, such as establishing or reviewing criteria for a festival by which it can be evaluated, or will this review happen without an addition to a motion tonight?
Through you, Mayor, Council endorsed formal criteria for assessing the festival in 2018. These relate to the endorsed mission statement for the event, which is to promote Australian music, the local music scene, and support Australian musicians and artists through a premier event that provides opportunities for musicians and artists to reach new audiences, and to provide a large-scale outdoor celebration that welcomes, encourages and engages the community with access to a broad variety of music and culture while contributing to economic development and tourism in St Kilda. These objectives relate primarily to artist participation, to community attendance and satisfaction, to tourism and to benefit for local traders. If councillors wish different criteria to be included as part of the 2023 event assessment, this could be considered at a later briefing or via a notice of motion.
Thank you, Councillor Consolo.
Thank you. And has an external economic assessment been done for the St Kilda Fest? And if so, when? And would another one be done for the 2023 event? And also, what's the nature of these assessments, if there is one?
Through you, Mayor, we've independently assessed economic impact for the St Kilda Festival each year for at least a decade, and will continue to do so. We've used a variety of providers. However, this year engaged Culture Counts, who are also conducting reviews of our third-party events as part of the event strategy. Culture Counts, regarded as leaders in this area, conduct economic impact assessments for over 800 events and organisations internationally. And they've also partnered with the MAV currently to create a local government dashboard to assess the impact of local government investment in arts and cultures. How economic impact is assessed is reasonably consistent, as Creative Vic require economic impact reports provided for all of their funded programs, and whilst we are not funded currently by Creative Vic, the process we use is the same, so events can be compared like to like.
Thank you very much. Any further questions? Councillor Bond, go ahead.
And what was that economic impact the last time we held a full St Kilda Festival pre-COVID?
Go ahead. Adele Dennison.
Through you, Mayor, that was in 2020, and direct economic impact to St Kilda was $34 million, and to the state of Victoria, $8.7 million.
$8.7 million to the state of Victoria? It'd be the two combined, would be the state, right? Anyway. No troubles. Any further questions, councillors? Councillor Martin, go ahead.
Following on from Councillor Consolo's question, if there were councils who wished to investigate whether the St Kilda Festival could be broadened to perhaps include satellite events in areas such as Port Melbourne and Elwood. Would that still come under the current terms of reference, or would that need to be added as a separate notice of motion at another time? Well, I'm not talking for 2023, of course, I'm talking further down the track.
Thanks, Councillor Martin.
Through you, Mayor, as part of the recommendation in the report tonight, we have said that we want to investigate opportunities in the lead-up to the weekend, the main weekend proposed in St Kilda, and that would certainly encompass the entire municipality and invite all venues and creative organisations to participate in the week leading up. If there was a desire to actually have the main stages, for example, down in other areas on the Saturday and Sunday, that would require an amendment to the recommendation tonight.
Thanks very much. Councillor Clark.
I think I heard before economic benefit of $34 million. Was that right for St Kilda?
Adele, if you could just repeat those numbers for us.
Yeah, so this is in 2020. It was $34 million in St Kilda and $8.7 million to the state of Victoria.
Follow up, Councillor Clark at all?
Yes, thank you. Sorry. Thanks, Mayor. And that is following a similar format as to what you're proposing for 2023, is it?
Adele?
Through you, Mayor. Yes, that would be correct. However, in 2023, we are looking at making it a 2-day festival. Those figures are based on it being that one main day. So it would be expected to increase for 2023.
I'm sorry, if I can, Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead.
What was the greatest of the $34 million? What made up the largest contributions of that, just at a high level? Do you know that at this point, or would you have to take that on notice?
We can break it down by who did the spending, and $22 million of that was from intrastate visitors, which obviously we lost a lot of through COVID. In terms of what categories they spent on, I'd need to take that on notice.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councillors, any further questions? All right, there being no further questions, I'm looking for a move of the officer's recommendation on something different. I've got Councillor Bond up first and to move, and Councillor Copsey to second. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. If you take this event, costs us roughly $1.7 million, and the economic benefit to St Kilda, plus there's an economic benefit to the rest of the state, but the economic benefit to just St Kilda is $34 million. That's an ROI, a return on investment of 20. I doubt there would be many, if any, other events in the state that would deliver that sort of return on investment for an event such as this. And that's sort of incredible, given we're picking up the full bill, or most of the bill. Is a little bit of sponsorship, a little bit of sales, but we mostly fund it, so effectively 1.7 is the total cost to us. To get an ROI of that for our local area is just an incredible outcome. I know Moomba wouldn't get anywhere near that, the Grand Prix wouldn't get anywhere near that, and I think you could name almost any other event in Melbourne, maybe bar the tennis, that wouldn't deliver a 20 times ROI. So I think on that basis alone, this is a magnificent event. There's also that this event has grown organically over the years. It didn't start off as the event we last held in 2020 and are going to hold in 2023. And if we said to someone, we've got $1.7 million here, I want you to create an event that returns a 20 times ROI, no one would be able to do it. But here we are. We have this great event that does this because of the years and years. I think we're over 40 years now of the St Kilda Festival, what it has become over that period of time and what it means to St Kilda and the economic benefit it puts into St Kilda, regardless of any other measure in terms of reputation, in terms of perception of St Kilda. Just the economic benefit alone is just incredible for this one event. So on that basis, I will strongly support the officer's recommendation. I really look forward to this coming back to us in 2023, and hopefully the way people are now embracing events and people are now going out again and they've put any fears they have behind them, which happened when we ran this event in 2022, we will see a return to the 400,000 or north of 400,000 people come down to St Kilda for this particular event, and we can all go out and celebrate and have a really good time. If councillors would like to see events in other parts of the municipality, they're welcome to propose them at any point in time. They're happy to create festivals and things in their own particular area, and we'll consider those particular projects on their merits when they come to us with those ideas. But I'm a big supporter of St Kilda Festival and will continue to be a big supporter of the St Kilda Festival, so I urge my fellow councillors to support this officer's recommendation as it sits. And we get the officer's permission to start planning a magnificent event for 2023.
Thanks, Councillor Bond. Councillor Copsey, do you wish to speak to the item?
Yep. Just to note, in addition to the local economic development benefits that Councillor Bond has comprehensively outlined, thank you. It's just fantastic to see the festival coming back. It has this fantastic reputational effect for the city, but also for the city as a home and an incubator for new talent, and also an iconic place for beloved acts to perform. We've hosted some amazing acts over the time that I've been on council, and certainly I'm looking forward to a return to the format that we all know and love, which will be a fantastic way to celebrate. I wanted to also just take the time today to thank the team once again for the incredible job that they did to run a St Kilda Fest that was in a workable format for us as we came out of restrictions last year. It was just so incredible this year, and it's just so incredible that was able to be achieved. And whilst it was very different in outcomes, it's exactly what we sought to do, still delivering a festival, but one that minimised risk and created a way for people to start coming back and seeing live music in the city. It was just fantastic. So I think what was really valuable through that was not only that we had a really successful festival, but that we heard during the consultation that was run as part of that process that people do love the format that we've come to celebrate annually in St Kilda Festival. So it will be great to see the return to that and feel like we're coming home to that wonderful celebration of our city and the talent, and also the local offering that we have, which is so beloved. So thanks so much for your hard work and good work, and let's bring on the next St Kilda Festival, and in addition to Councillor Bond's growing collection of St Kilda Fest t-shirts.
Thanks, Councillor Copsey. Who else would like to speak to the item? Thank you, Councillor Consola. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'll be supporting this tonight too. I think that the officers work really hard, and interesting to see another variation across 2 days. Hopefully this will be the balance right. It's sounding great. All the acts were amazing this past year. Whoever's picking the music does a great job. It's really fun. The economic benefit, that it's incredible. 20 times the return on investment. I'm sure some other places in our municipality would really like a piece of that, or even some attention to that. Very lucky that St Kilda gets this. The St Kilda is fun. There's so many events going on in the summer. So I wonder, as a municipality, how much we need to also put into that when it's also already happening by other events. I went to an event recently where council gave a $10,000 grant, and it was filled with hundreds of people, and they were really passionate and enjoying it. So I'd like to make sure that we also, across all our events, are looking at our municipality. It's a successful event, this St Kilda Fest, and I'm happy to support the 2023 one. But as the Gateway one of the Gateway Ward councillors, it's also my duty to make sure that my residents up here and the businesses are getting fair representation and a fair slice of the pie. And so it's important that we keep questioning when something's a big budget and keep looking at it, making sure it's the right decision every year. So those are some of my questions, and I look forward to the event in 2023 and also the review, and always making sure that this stays the event that our municipality needs to support. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Consolo. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Martin, go ahead.
I've been involved in well over 30 St Kilda festivals, and if I voted against this motion, I'd be like the man who shot Bambi, and I'm not sure I could ever go near Councillor Bond again. But I do echo Councillor Consolato's comments that it would be great if we could, without making material alterations to what we're currently doing over the years, see if we can link in some of the areas at the extremities of our municipalities so that they get a little bit of a piece of the action. I know that one of the many things I've heard in Port Melbourne over the last 20 or 25 years, all the good things happen in St Kilda and we miss out. And that's not really true. We may have a tiny chip on our shoulder sometimes, but if over the next couple of years we can see what we can do, and if there are satellite events or whatever, that would be magic. But as I said, there's no way I can vote against this motion. I don't think I could face the consequences.
Thanks, Councillor Martin. Any other councillors? Councillor Crawford, please go ahead.
I think the great thing that is, although there have been some concerns, really in terms of a festival that can deliver that size, there probably isn't another location that provides the public transport and the setting and the space, which is the reality of perhaps why it started there all those years ago. I don't know the decision-making of the council then, but there really isn't that kind of space in any other part of the municipality. It is much more than just a council for our own community. It has grown to be much bigger than that. But before I go back to that, that's why we have the local festivals fund as well. We're not excluding other areas. And if they take that 10 grand and slowly build it over time and it becomes as big, this did not start big. So we actually have the funding already available to various groups within and organisations and streets in the city to start their own and build. And perhaps one day it gets to the size of this and there would be more funding put to it. But it started somewhere 40 years ago. So that's why the festival grants money is there. We welcome small and big ideas that can grow. Canal Fest was one of them this year, and I look forward to what comes next. And they're talking about making it annual, and that's where it starts. So really, the impetus is there for wherever we are in the municipality to take advantage of that and see what comes of it. The other thing I wanted to say, this is much more than just for our local community and traders. It is about showcasing artists and new Australian artists, and that in itself, if we like to consider ourselves the cultural hub of Melbourne, that is part and parcel of our responsibility as a council to continue that work. Our cultural capital and our cultural economy is huge, and in order to keep growing it, we need to have some headline events and lots of these little festivals as well. So I think the combination that we actually have is pretty good. Obviously, we can always look to improve. I know for a fact that Elwood wants to shut down the street and have a Christmas festival, which is, again, the festival money's there. So there's lots of little ideas out, and council is supportive of both that and the big one, but definitely looking forward. And I know that the artists and the crews and all the associated people that work in that industry, events industry, will be very much looking forward to a 2-day return.
Thank you, Councillor Crawford. Who else would like to speak to this item, councillors? Okay, Councillor Bond, would you like to close? Put that motion. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Councillors, let's now move to item 13.1, informal meetings of council. Question of the... Did I not say unanimous on the last one? Oh, okay, no worries. 13.1, informal meetings of council. Any questions? I'm happy to move. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Copsey, the second. I don't wish to speak. Councillor Copsey, no. And nobody else wishes to speak. So I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Councillors, there's no notice of motions on the agenda this evening, so item 14 is dealt with. Item 15, councillors, reports by council delegates. No problem. Let's now move to item 16, which is items of urgent business. Councillors, any items of urgent business this evening? There being none, let's move to item 17, which is confidential matters. And councillors, we have no confidential reports this evening. I declare this meeting closed. Thank you.